center here and 10x super.
Hi, George. Did you get your presentation difficulties out of the way, or? Oh, sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh,
yeah.
Could I try it there with you now and see if?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fire away.
If I just go share screen. Ah, looks better, does it? There we go. Share.
Okay. Yeah.
That looks better, doesn't it? Oh, that's much better.
Yeah. Great.
And if I go to slideshow from beginning, you can see the whole screen, and then I can click on. Okay. Oh shit! No, that didn't work.
Perfect. Perfect. That's
No,
working.
fine. The second page, it is. Okay, excellent. So do I just escape down now to escape out of this? I think escape. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so it looks like I'll be able to see it myself this time, which will be nice.
Yeah.
I think what happened is I didn't log into Zoom, my own Zoom account, and I went through the browser instead of the app. So once I did that, there now it seems to work.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
I think they deliberately make the web version more difficult because they want you to use the app, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's what happened to me there now as I went through the browser instead of going through the app. Oh, great. Oh, that's good, Robert. But I think any of Brian, Sunny, or yourself, who was clicking through any, clicked away, so it was grand, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it worked. It still worked, yeah, but this might make it easier for you.
Make it easier, yeah.
Yeah.
We're now 7 now, we have a few minutes, so. Right, perfect.
Right, I'll disappear and get some
You have a
tea.
busy day, let you go off if you have other stuff to do, not you have a busy day, I think of you. Yeah.
Yeah, well, another few of these and then that's it for me.
All right, go ahead.
Right, yeah, cup of tea. Right, I'll talk to you later.
I'm going to do the same thing. Okay.
Hmm.
Brian?
Yeah, hi,
Brian,
George.
I got my thing sorted so I can do my own share screen now.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, I went in
very
through the
good.
browser the first time and I went back out and went in through the app and it seemed to work.
Nice one. That's great.
With Robert and it seems to be fine. Yeah.
That's great. That's great, George.
Yeah.
Nice one. That's
Yeah,
great.
happy with that.
Well, I think we'll make a start. We've got a nice cohort listening in. So if everyone is ready to go, I think what I'll do is just try to bring up participants list here now. Who's on here? Okay, great. We got 12 participants. That's fine. So, so again, hello everybody, and welcome to the second session today, where we're addressing the whole area of startups in Ireland, the do's and don'ts. So mainly cover do's. We haven't had a chance to cover the don'ts, but anyway, there's joining myself on this session today is Joe Borza from Enterprise Ireland, with particular interest again in startups, and colleagues from the Munster Technological University-based Rubicon Centre, George Bowman and Paul Healy. George is Operation Manager of the Rubicon Centre. Paul is a Director. And I am representing the Nimbus Research Centre today, whom the majority will know, considering we're left, right and centre in this conference at the moment. But anyway, I think, George, you can take the floor there now if you wish.
Okay, if I can get it going. Thank you, Brian. Thanks for the introduction. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen here now. Worked a while ago, so let's hope it'll keep working. There.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Okay. We can see.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, so welcome everybody, and thank you for coming on to this session. A lot of sessions on today, so thank you for joining this one. So I'm just going to start today talking about the startup environment from a Rubicon MTU point of view. And as Brian said, Paul, my colleague, is going to continue on the growth pathway of startups from the Rubicon. So I suppose just to make a start, this here is just like a stat, an infographic, and you can see from this that there are about 305 million startups annually around the world. So it's a lot of startups that take place. And I suppose what I want to just look at here this morning, from our point of view, the one I've circled here is the one with the 3,173. So basically, that's the area, I suppose, we're in. So that's the area where there's like incubation centers, innovation centers, like the Rubicon Center, and accelerator programs and so forth, that develop startups. And I think this is the piece of the startup environment that kind of we're involved in here in the Rubicon Center. And just to maybe tell you a little bit about the Irish scene as well, is that the Irish startup scene, as you can see there, there's about 23,000 startups per annum in Ireland. Now that's across all sectors. So that would be like retail, could be construction, technology, whatever. So it's a lot of startups every year in Ireland. And what was kind of interesting is that if you look at the first half of 2020 being the year that we all remember so well, that the first half of 2020 we had about just shy of 10,000 startups in Ireland. So the trend is still there, even though we're going through like difficult times in 2020. There were still people looking and starting businesses in Ireland, which is nice to see. And for us, it's great because that's what we do for a living, is helping the startups in the Rubicon Center. So the Rubicon Center itself, as you can see here, it's a 20,000 square foot building. We've got in the region of 40 plus companies that are in about the Rubicon. And if they all come in on the one day, we have about 160 people in the building. So it's a hive of activity when it's up and going. And in the Rubicon, I suppose we receive in about maybe in the region around 400 contacts a year or ideas, or people coming in with business ideas. And we look at them, and then I suppose as part of the whole ecosystem of entrepreneurship in the region, we find that a lot of people come to the Rubicon first, and then we engage with the others in the region. So as you can imagine, there is a really, really good entrepreneurship and startup community in this region. And MTU are involved, and we work with them closely where we can. We work closely with the local enterprise offices, with Enterprise Ireland, with industry colleagues and partners, and with others in the region who may benefit the startup community. And in the Rubicon, we work with the entrepreneurs when they're in the building with us. We also run a number of different programs within the Rubicon. And we have a New Frontiers Phase 1 and Phase 2 programs, which are sponsored by EI. we run an Excel female entrepreneurship program for females in the STEM sector, that's science, technology, engineering, and maths. We run that in conjunction again with EI and ourselves. And then we do an enterprise start program for other types of businesses that we're trying to help. Also, I suppose in the Rubicon Centre on the other side, we have a very active angel investment group as well. So we have a group of angel investors who invest in our companies, and we present them to them on a regular basis. And if anybody is interested in looking at angel investment, then you might contact the Rubicon, and we certainly will talk to you. So you just contact myself from the Rubicon, and I can talk to you about that and the angel investment. So I suppose, like, how do people start, and where does it all come from, and you know, how do startups start, if you like? Well, basically, I think a lot of people see, you know, a problem in the marketplace, or they might see a need for something in the marketplace, and then they try and come up with an idea. And I think that's at that point then they start to talk to us, and then from that they focus then on creating like their business model. So basically, what you do have is people see a need or a problem out there. They come up with an idea to fix this problem, and then they create their business model to achieve them, to fix this need or problem in the marketplace. I tell a lot of people when they come into the Rubicon is that the best business models are the ones that can make money while you're asleep. So if you're creating a business model, I would say to try and look at a model that maybe can make money while you're asleep. And that's a really, really good business model. What I'd like then just to share with you here maybe is maybe just 3 of the companies and the diverse range of businesses that we look at within the Rubicon Centre from a startup point of view. The first one here would be Swift Energy. And Swift Energy, you have the 2 co-founders there, Joe Frayne and Adrian Casey. And Joe and Adrian were looking at the products for the home energy market. So they were concentrating on home energy and the efficiencies of it and so forth. And they're bringing different products to the market and different energy products. And they're using very, very innovative technology, which they're developing themselves. So again, that came in as an idea. They thought there was a problem in the marketplace. They looked at it, and now they've created a really good business model. And Swift Energy are up and going, and one of our key clients in the Rubicon Centre. The next business here then is called AutoExcel. And AutoExcel, the 2 founders are Pat O'Connor and Charles Daly. And Pat and Charles worked in the medical department in CIT, MTU. And they were looking at different medical products, and then they took one of these ideas and they decided they were going to spin it out of the college, and they created their own business and came over here to us in the Rubicon. So Pat and Charles have what's called an orthopedic trauma company, and what they look at is they look at very patient-focused fracture care products that can be used in a hospital environment, and but very patient-focused. And they started out, the first 2 products, one is a tibia nail and one is a fibia nail. So they're nails for treating fractures and breakages of like your tibia and your shin bone, or your fibia up here in your thigh bone. So they're the 2 areas they focused on at the minute, and they have other products in development now as well. But again, looked at a problem and came up with a solution through their idea. And the last one I'm just going to show you here is Keelvar, and that's Alan Holland. Alan Holland is the founder of Keelvar, and Alan came in with, he was looking at sourcing optimization, really is what the business is about, and he was looking at the tender processes for purchasing and all of that area, and he delved into that whole space, and he came up with some really, really good solutions for this area, and they now specialize a lot in sourcing automation. They look at sourcing fulfillment. They look at integration and innovation in this space. So you can see there are 3 different types of companies, but all again came along the same pathway with a need and a problem, an idea, and then created a business model out of that. And 3 very successful companies from the Rubicon, of which we're very proud of. So next, what I just want to show you here is I just want to show you a video. It's 5 or 6 minutes long. It's about a simple business idea and how the problem was effectively dealt with. So just enjoy this for a few moments.
This is where I live. I live in Kenya at the south parts of the Nairobi National Park. Those are my dad cows at the back, and behind the cows, that's the Nairobi National Park. Nairobi National Park is not fenced in the south where I live, which means wild animals like zebras migrate out of the park freely. So predators like lions follow them, and this is what they do. They kill our livestock. It's one of the cows which was killed at night, and I just woke up in the morning and I found it dead, and I felt so bad because it was the only bull we had. My community, the Maasai, we believe that we came from heaven with all our animals and all the land for herding them, and that's why we value them so much. So I grew up hating lions so much. The Morans are the warriors who protect our community and the livestock, and they were so upset about this problem. So they killed the lions. It's one of the 6 lions which were killed in Nairobi. And I think this is why the Nairobi National Park lions are few. So a boy from 6 to 9 years old in my community is responsible for his dad's cows. And that's the same thing which happened to me. So I had to find a way of solving this problem. And the first idea I got was to use fire, because I thought lions were scared of fire. But I came to realize that didn't really help, because it was even helping the lions to see through the caution. So I didn't give up. I continued. And the second idea I got was to use a scarecrow. I was trying to trick the lions that I was standing near the caution. But lions are very clever. They will come the first day and they see the scarecrow and they go back. But the second day, they'll come and they say, this thing is not moving here, it's always here. So it jumps in and kills them. So one night I was walking around the caution with a torch, and that day the lions didn't come. And I discovered that lions were afraid of a moving light. So I had an idea. Since I was a small boy, I used to work in my room for the whole day. And I even took apart my mom's new radio. And that day, she almost killed me, but I learned a lot about electronics. So I got an old car battery, an indicator box, the small device found in the motorcycle, and it helps motorists when they want to turn right or left, it blinks. And I got a switch where I can switch on the lights on and off. And that's a small torch from a broken flashlight. So I set up everything. As you can see, the solar panel charges the battery, and the battery supplies the power to the small indicator box. I call it a transformer. And the indicator box makes the lights to flash. And as you can see, the bulbs face outside because that's where the lions come from. And that's how it looks to lions when they come at night. The lights flash and trick lions that I was walking around the caution, but I was sleeping in my bed. So I set it up in my home 2 years ago, and since then you have never experienced any problem with lions. And my neighboring homes heard about this idea. One of them was this grandmother. She had a lot of animals being killed by lions. And she asked me if I can put the lights for her. And I said, yes. So I put the lights. You can see at the back, these are the lion lights. Since now, I've set up 7 bombers around my community, and they're really working. And my idea is also being used now in all over Kenya for scaring other predators like hyenas, leopards, and also it's also being used to scare elephants away from people's farms. Because of this invention, I was lucky to get a scholarship in one of the best schools in Kenya, Blue Coast International School, and I'm really excited about this. My new school now is coming in and helping by fundraising and creating an awareness. I even took back my friends to my community, and we're installing the lights to their homes which don't have, and I'm teaching them how to put them. So 1 year ago, I was just a boy in the Savannah grassland, hiding my father's cows, and I used to see planes flying over, and I told myself that one day I'll be there inside. So, and here I am today. I got a chance to come by plane for my first time for TED. So my big dream is to become an aircraft engineer and pilot when I grow up. I used to hate lions, but now because my invention is saving my father's cows and the lions, we're able to stay with lions without any conflict. Surely, it means in my language. Thank you very much.
Okay, so you can see there from Richard's video, it's a very simple way that he solved the problem, but yet it was a problem in his community. He came up with an idea, and you can see he had a number of iterations before he found the right solution. I mean, he had started with a fire, he had scarecrows, and then he found the torch, and then he found the moving lights and the torch. And again, that's what we see a lot with startups that come through the Rubicon. They go through iterations before they find the actual business model or a solution to the problem they're trying to fix. I think that's a very simple way of seeing it. The next thing I just want to talk about here from that is entrepreneurial alertness. And entrepreneurial alertness is what we see a lot of. And this is where entrepreneurs see something that the rest of us don't see. And how many times have you heard, "Gar, I wish I thought of that idea," but they don't. But good entrepreneurs are always alert, they're always watching, and they see things that, I suppose, in a way that the rest of us miss. And what we do in the Rubicon Center is when the entrepreneurs come into us with their idea, then we help them to nurture that idea, to develop it, and to deliver something from it. And with the team, we have a very professional and very focused team on startups, and we work with them, and we make sure we can help them to give them the best chance to create something from their business idea. And kind of how we do this, I suppose we do it in a few ways, but these are maybe three ways here we look at it. So first way is we look at the customers and the value proposition. So it's always a good area to start, instead of their customers out there for your product as a startup. And once we can identify that, we then look at the value proposition of what you're bringing to these people. And is it better what's in the market? Is it improving what's out there? Is there room for it in the marketplace? So we do a lot on that area. Of course, then we spend a good lot of time on the cost and revenue. So the feasibility piece, what does it cost to produce this? And can you make enough revenue from it? And then the last piece we look at is a lot on the partners and resources. So where do people need help? And what resources might they need? And we always help them to do that with our contacts in industry and externally, and with our alumni and whatever. So we will get them help, whatever they need to get some help. So then just to kind of go through again, like in the Rubicon, like I said to you at the beginning, we have about 400 ideas a year, or contacts come into us every year. We then look at them, and we would kind of engage at about 300, because there would be a number of them where we wouldn't be able to engage with them for various different reasons, depending on the sector we're in and so forth. So about 300 of them engage with us on any given year. And from that then 300, we would work with them. Some of them we would put on programs, and some we would work with externally to help guide their idea. And on the programs, we would have, like I said earlier on, we have Enterprise New Frontiers, phase 1 and phase 2, sponsored by Enterprise Ireland. We've our Excel program for females, we've our Enterprise Start program. So in all these programs, we select about 90 people. So you can see that it's quite competitive for the 300 that are up there to get some places on these programs. So then we select these 90, we work very, very closely with them to develop their product further. And what we find by engaging with people and putting them on programs, we end up at the end of every year kind of generally with somewhere around 46 startup companies. Okay, so you can see there from a start of about 400 ideas, by the time they're filtered through the system, you end up at about 46 startups in a year. And that's the kind of stuff that we're seeing in the Rubicon. That's the kind of stats that we have coming through our doors every year. And I suppose lastly, before I finish up, if I just want to give you a take-home message today about startups is like, I think startups have to show like good qualities, good strength, and good beliefs in what they're trying to do. And I found this quote from a man called Oscar Wilde, and I thought it epitomizes for me like an entrepreneur is that you have to be yourself because everybody else is taken. So you can't just follow everybody else. So that's my start piece on the presentation on startups. And now my colleague Paul Healy is going to take it off from there and tell you what we do with the ideas when we and the startups when we have them at this point. So thank you for listening, and I'll unshare my slide here now. Okay, all right, Paul.
Okay, thanks, George. So, Paul, if you're there, we'll queue you up and get going. But I particularly like the one George mentioned about the innovation that if you're asleep at night and it generates revenue, you're seriously on the pig's back there, George. So, I think I'm in the wrong game, I have to say.
Yeah.
Okay, Paul.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, George. Yes, and following on from that, so what we're going to do first, I'm going to share my screen. Normally, the Internet of Things conference, as we all know, would have happened. Would have been on campus, and some of you would have got a chance then to visit the Rubicon and to walk around it. So now, hopefully, the technology doesn't let me down. I'm just going to play you a short 5-minute video, which will show you it's a virtual tour of the Rubicon and shows some of our clients and backs up very much the stories and then what George has been talking, and then we'll move on from there. Is that okay? Right. So I'll share my screen. Just bear with me one moment. No. It's not working. I'll just stop that for a minute. Just bear with me.
Paul, I think maybe put your presentation into the slideshow and then it might play that way.
Yeah, I just
if you bring it to slideshow.
so I just video present. No, not working. Just a second. Right. You see that?
It just seems to be frozen there, Paul, but we do actually see a presentation of those minor slides at the side. I think we have enough of material here to actually go on if you want to start talking about it.
Okay.
We can definitely see the headings. And
okay.
You have to say it's fairly clear, that's for sure.
Yeah, okay. Well, then we'll just go with the slideshow. We'll just go without the video. It's a pity. Technology is just, okay. We just go and we might have one last go. So okay, you can see my slides now, Brian, yeah?
Well, we can just see the minor ones at the side. I think the main slide is actually crashed or frozen.
Resume
see.
share. No,
Oh, here we go.
you can
There's
see
life.
it. Right.
Yeah, there's life.
Can you see that now, Brian?
Yeah, we sure can. Yeah, brilliant.
Right.
Brilliant.
So basically, sorry about that. Basically, so our business in the Rubicon is all about supporting the entrepreneur once the baby is born. And what I mean by that is once people have come up with the idea, then they very much change from being, you know, somebody who has an idea to becoming an entrepreneur. And as we say often, and you'll see their status, you know, if you look on their LinkedIn, they move their status on their LinkedIn and they become founder, and they're founder of ABC Limited, and they move on to becoming an entrepreneur. And that's what the Rubicon. So the Rubicon, first of all, has helped them bring their idea from just an idea in their head, could be on a piece of paper, bring it down onto a piece of paper, getting some initial money and making that decision to cross the Rubicon. So now we're working with supporting the entrepreneur once the idea is born and once they're saying, I'm an entrepreneur. So what do we do? So the companies move on. As George has said, we have programs. We have our New Frontiers, Exxon, Enterprise Start, and Scale Corp. But the entrepreneur moves on through the incubator over a number of years. And some of our projects then, they need support and they begin to scale. So what do scaling companies need? So scaling companies need working structures in which they can build on. So we've very much, and the entrepreneur has very much put in the foundation. So they need a working structure they can work on. They need to have a founder with a vision and ability to bring the business on and to lead the team. Our help in the incubator is often, this is where we come in and we work with the CEO to build the capability of the CEO. And that's been done through our programs, through close mentoring by us or by mentors that come from Enterprise Ireland or indeed are associated with the Rubicon. And basically what we're looking then is for the CEO, but often we find that the CEOs and the person who starts the business isn't the person to drive the business on in a couple of years down and to bring it from having raised some initial money to bringing it to fulfilling orders, building a team. So often we have to be involved in the, if you like, the building out of the team. And sometimes the CEO will say, you know, I've enjoyed coming up with the idea. I'm the founder. I like the idea and all of that. But you know, the headaches of trying to fulfill orders or hire and sometimes fire staff, that's not for me. So I'd rather stick to the technical side, become a CTO, and that's fine. So the Rubicon and his team can have to be involved in helping the entrepreneur to introduce them to a potential CEO, and to framing out what that structure could be like, and to putting in some of the structures that will be there for the long term. And it's really, really important to get that right in the early years, because if they're not right, you're really building up trouble for later down the road. And indeed, the investment community who come in afterwards won't support those projects where there's quite clearly there are some problems with the team. All our entrepreneurs through the Rubicon, whether they come through programs, through mentoring, or on one-to-one advice, all build a business plan of some shape or form. And that's great. And often the business plans would then just be put on the shelf to gather dust because they've raised their initial capital. They've taken to the Leos, they've been to Enterprise Ireland, they've been to the angel groups or the VCs, and they've got some initial money. But the job of the business plan isn't done. It's actually only beginning, because how do you know if the project is on track? How do you know it's going to hit the milestones? How do you know you're going to roll this beautiful project that you've came up with you and your co-founders? How do you know it's going to do the business? So we help people to revisit their business plans, you know, to bring them out, dust off the dust, to blow away the cobwebs, and to work with them in that area. Scaling companies need to have the ability to know when things are not right or working out. So they might have developed a product and the customer group they're going after, they're just not getting the sales, then it's obviously you're either going after the wrong sector, or you're indeed, the idea isn't feasible in the way you thought, or indeed the idea, the market opportunity isn't just big enough to support what's going to be a growing company with a hungry team to feed. It may be only, so the business, the idea isn't scalable. So scaling companies need to have, and particularly led by the CEO, they need to have the ability to pivot when things are not working out, when things are going wrong. You know, they may have tried things, but to keep trying things that are not working out, the same thing, and trying to roll it out and trying to push it and spending huge amounts of money in marketing and that. So what we help them do is to realize very quickly, say, stop, this isn't working out. You still have cash in the tank. You can, you can change slightly. You maybe reformulate the way you're offering, your pricing. It could be a whole list of things. So we work with those kind of things. And so scaling companies very much need that. Hiring and finding the first team members is critical to all the startups that we work with. And that's because they are form the nucleus of the business. Very much those people that we'll see will be the same people that will pitch to our Enterprise Ireland, will pitch to customers, and they have to be right. So often we in the incubator, we would have people who come we attract every year, who come into us with business ideas. They might have been spun off by FDI companies or whatever. They might be in mid-career, and they know that they want to do something else, but they're quite talented people. We run then, we do introductions then to our projects and say, look, we've got somebody that we think might be a CTO. We've got somebody who will make a great marketing person. They've got the sector experience or they've done a startup before and it hasn't worked out, it's failed, but they've got the experience. They might be very suitable for being one of your first hires, being part of your team. Just because you've started and everything is hunky-dory doesn't mean that you don't need a team of advisors. I'd advocate that you actually need your advisors more now, because added to your pressures, you've got the pressure, you've taken on investment, you've got Enterprise Ireland money, you've got your angels, and you might even have a VC on board. And now you also have customers. So you now need to, how do I spend all this money that's been invested in me? How do I deliver what I promised? So that's actually a huge pressure. It's actually, so you've swapped a pressure of not having any money to drive a company on to now having the money and the fuel in the tanks. How do you deliver what you said you would? In other words, how do you keep your investors happy? How do you keep your customers? Do you deliver to the customers, to the get one, and everybody that's invested in you, and including your own team? So in terms of scaling companies, the help they need from us then is to help them to develop a team of advisors who could be built around them. And Cork and the Southwest region is very fortunate to have lots and lots of talented people. And even more so since COVID has arrived, we've seen lots of talented people return home from abroad who have either been in startups themselves, grown companies, exited, and that. And there's a huge talent of people available to us that we can matchmake with companies that are scaling. The first rounds of funding are not the last rounds of funding. And access to finance continues to be a requirement. Now you might need access to finance to fulfill orders, that requirements you've taken on board. You may need finance because you've seen somebody that you'd really, really like to be part of your team. And often it's the case, as I meet people, you might meet somebody who has some brilliant opportunities on board, but they're kind of afraid to reach out and take those opportunities and service those new opportunities, which can be quite lucrative because they don't have the money in the can. They don't have the investment to attract the people they need to service those requirements. A good example of that would be somebody who might be building out and say, listen, I really do need to have a person in the States. I need to have that person there. I need this key person to look after the account, to deal with that key customer, who would have that knowledge and experience. So excellent. And then the other thing that's just because you're scaling and because you have orders and you're growing doesn't mean that's the end of the road for the supports. There are both state supports from Enterprise Ireland Intertrade Ireland, Udaras and Leos, but there are also then supports from a whole network of people who work both nationally and at nationally, local level and internationally who are there. And one of the things that, so they're needed. So our job in the Rubicon then is to provide all these offerings in a toolbox. It would be fair to say that no two customers or clients are the same and have the same needs and will have the same needs at the exact same time. Some of our clients are located outside the incubator and across the region. Some of our clients will commit to will contact us continuously, and we'll have a long history of working with them as they require us. Some clients might not be in contact with us with 12 months, 24 months, or even longer. And then they come to a critical stage in the road and they remember, you know, that nugget that was delivered by somebody in New Frontiers training up in the seminar in our incubator. Now I need that. I now know what they were talking about. I wonder, could they explore that out with us a bit more? So we provide access to mentoring and advice, not only from our own professional team, but also from the mentoring panels and the advisors that are available both in and outside the incubator. We also, as the journey goes on, we provide introductions to others who've done the journey. And we're fortunate that all of those who engage with the incubator down through the years are all happy to give back. Some of them have had very positive experiences, gone on to grow. Companies have been substantial, some and some have not. But they all have experience they'd like to share. And one thing, they're available to us, are our alumni. They number over 400 plus, and they're scattered right across the Southwest region and in all different sectors. So what we do is after we say, well, do you know what? We know somebody who had that problem. We know somebody who's done that. Have you ever, and we then say, would you have a cup of coffee with that person? Now at the moment, it's all virtual, but in normal times, that would involve coming into the incubator, sitting over 2 cups of coffee in our foyer, and then seeing what's going on. And often people give back hugely because they've gone this journey themselves. We provide access to support mechanisms, support resources. We're part of the MTU, one of Ireland's leading universities, now coupled with leading incubators. In the campus in Cork, we have a wide, and we're seeing today through the internet thing, a wide palette available for regional development. And that is the same right across, whether you're in Tralee or in Cork, all different sectors, all different knowledges that are available. And we provide access through our innovation and enterprise office to those people. That's at one level. So that's at a local level. Then nationally, we work and we continue to work with Enterprise Ireland and other such agencies who operate internationally. And we also then use a network of other incubators, both public and private, who also have services to offer. And finally, the Rubicon has reached out over the years internationally. And in an example of an international experience is our links with Vietnam that my colleague George Bullman has delivered, which allows people to access the Asian market using Vietnam as a springboard. And in terms of the development and software developers will be an example of that, the talent there. We also would have links into the UK. Despite Brexit, people are looking to get into the UK and want to do business. And the same is into Boston through our links into Boston. So we provide an international flavor. Our angel group is there to provide further investment for companies that need it. We also provide introductions to people who could be part of your team for the future. And indeed, for somebody who wants to scale, continue to scale, they may still want to be part of our incubator in Cork. Recently, we launched a benchmarking product, which is like a health check of businesses. It allows companies who are considering scaling to compare to how they're performing against others in their sector, and also then provides against the 7 pillars to measure how they're doing and provides the route. Then the output is a development plan for scaling. So that's the service we offer not only to people who carry out on our Scale Corp program, but also who are engaged and the only who want to scale their businesses. And finally, we have a Scale Corp project, which we run with our colleagues in Cork County Council. And this is already started, but we will be piling other editions of this in the future. And basically what we're doing is we're bringing together a 12-month company plan, which we've built through the benchmarking system, and we develop out by advanced mentoring, introductions to opportunities, both here in with FDIs, internationally in the UK and in the US through our project partners. And the idea is then to grow companies and then indeed to provide access to finance if required, put those scaling plans into offering. So finally, I'd like to thank you for listening. If you'd like to know more about the Rubicon, then our website, which is updated daily at rubiconcentre.ie, is a wealth of knowledge and has lots and lots of stories and blogs on it to read. And indeed, whether you want to be an investor, want to be part of our programs, or just want to talk to somebody about your idea or how you scale your company, or are seeking advice from any of our professional team located in NTU, then please do click on that. And finally, we encourage people to our Twitter feed if you'd like to follow us at Rubicon Centre. Thank you. So I'll hand you back to Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. That's great. And as I say and reiterate, our colleagues in Rubicon people are a top bunch of people and a wealth of knowledge. And talking about wealth of knowledge, Joe Borza, if you're about. Joe, could I actually ask you to come in here and talk a little bit about the Competitive Startup Fund and the High Performance Startup Program? Basically, what qualifies a startup for those programs? And is there any kind of like do's and don'ts associated with those programs? Because, you know, from an Nimbus perspective, we meet a lot of startups and their end goal is to try and get into these programs. But I would say that they're probably tripping over a few common mistakes. If you have any comments on those, that'd be great.
Yeah, thanks very much, Brian. I suppose, good afternoon, everybody, and nice to talk to you all. I suppose the first thing will be for CSF, so Competitive Start Fund. And I suppose CSF would be seen as being the kind of prequel to becoming a HBSU company. So you could be very, very early stage. It could be just an idea, or it could be a business that started. It's got maybe its first sales. Maybe you've got your first MVP done, your minimum viable product. But CSF is very much kind of the first point on a journey for a company to get through HBSU. So HBSU is the next stage after, let's say, CSF. But that doesn't mean you have to go through CSF to come into HBSU. HBSU is about high potential startups, and this is about growing companies to be, you know, the future kind of major companies in Ireland, etc. So, you know, we're looking for companies that are so we're looking for companies that are growing and becoming high growth companies. And what that means within the HBSU sense is very much a company that can have over 10 employees and over $1 million in sales, primarily exports, and is an innovative company within a 3-year time frame. And that's kind of the very basic level of approaching HBSU and becoming HBSU as a startup company. I mean, the things we're looking at from a CSF point of view will be very much around the team, especially early on, and actually at HBSU stage as well. It is still very much about the team, how the team is able to develop, how it's growing, who's involved in the team, how committed are they to the project. And I suppose that the kind of areas that we'd look at when we're talking to a company at any stage is looking at the team, product, the market, the finances, and the timing. And the timing can sometimes be the most important. Like, is it at this particular moment in time, is it a travel tech startup, which is obviously a very tough area to break into, or is it a remote delivery company? In which case, you know, there's probably a huge amount of demand for those type of technologies at the moment, and digitalization, etc. So we're kind of looking at lots of different sectors. I work within the ICT area, so obviously it's primarily around software, etc. But Enterprise Ireland does cover, you know, all the other sectors as well, and it does focus on Indigenous Irish companies. So it's not looking for overseas companies that are setting up, you know, branch offices, etc. in Ireland. It's very much about supporting the Indigenous ecosystem and the Indigenous entrepreneurs. So like the kind of things I'd always recommend to startup companies is to, they need a business plan, but before you even do a business plan, it's probably better just to do a business model canvas where you have a one-pager which shows, you know, minimum viable product, the, you know, customer sweet spot, you know, what you're selling, who you're selling it to, who your partners are, you know, pricing, costs, all those very basic things on one sheet of paper. And then after that, maybe taking them through the kind of more detailed, you know, breakdown of their business plan, which is, you know, the detail of what they're doing, how they're doing it, etc. And that really is, I suppose, for startups, your business plan changes on a daily basis, which wouldn't be the same for most established companies, where they might have a 5-year strategy and they stick to it, and then after 5 years they might repivot towards something else. Whereas a startup, you know, you're probably doing that on a weekly basis, trying to figure out what you're doing, what you're selling, what your customer needs, etc. And I suppose the 3 key things any startup should be doing is talking to customers, building their product, and making sales. If you're doing those 3 things, you're probably on a really, really strong path towards creating a viable startup, and then hopefully a very successful and scaling startup from that point of view. And I suppose if you're looking at the areas where we see companies tripping up when they come into us, there can be an awful lot with solo founders, which is very difficult, because if you're a solo founder, you can't do everything. You know, you could have a solo founder who's amazing at coding, but can't sell anything, and you could have an amazing founder who can sell, you know, ice to Eskimos and can't develop anything and needs to outsource everything. So you're really looking for a blend or a balance to the team to develop what they're doing and make a success of what they're planning on doing.
That's fantastic, Joe. And again, it's a kind of a question to Paul and George as well. Joe emphasized the whole area of sales. Certainly from a Nimbus perspective, we get so many startups coming in, I suppose, and what Joe was saying, they lean towards maybe the technical brilliance side, but lacking in sales. Is there any part of your programs that kind of like a is tailored towards getting that sales piece right for a company?
Yeah, I suppose all our programs, actually, we acknowledge very early on for success that you need to be addressing to be getting your first sales. So what we do, we spend a lot of time on the pitching, getting your sales pitch right. We have very good trainers, a number of trainers who work with companies and with the entrepreneurs to do dry runs, if you like, in terms of doing sales pitching and that. And then also, you know, so that runs right across all our programs.
Yeah. If I might add there, Brian, too, like is that I suppose there's a few parts to sales I always think, but one of the main parts of sales is closing sales. And that's where a lot of startups and companies fail. They actually get in front of someone to you know, try and make a sale, and then it doesn't close, and they don't know what happened and why they didn't close the sale. So as Paul said, in our training programs, when we're doing that section of the training, we concentrate a bit on how to close the sale. That's the important piece, I think. Yeah,
okay. If I could ask a couple of stupid questions now, how much is the process to actually set up a company, in your opinion?
In terms of, are we talking the legals, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. Yeah, registering the company, you know.
It's very easy. The problem, it's 300 to 400 euros is all you would require if you to set up, to form a company. But strangely enough, Brian, we actually advise people when they do our programs not to set up the company straight away, to do the feasibility, to work out, you know, if there's an opportunity there, and then to set up. Actually, the costs involved in setting the company up in Ireland. It's not the setup cost that cause problems for people. It's unfortunately when things go wrong and they have to wind up, or that it's the winding up costs are substantial. So we always advise people to, through our programs, particularly if you're a feasibility and until you take an investment, don't set up a company until you're at that stage.
Yeah, and then I suppose this follows on an answer that no one seems to know really, unless you're actually going through the experience yourself. And I know we always want to be very positive in these workshops, but it does come a time when we have to dissolve that company. How much does that cost, that process?
It's really, George, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I suppose, Brian, it's kind of a difficult question because it depends at what stage the company is at that time. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
You know, if they've built up debtors and they have a whole lot of stuff, so they, you know, it could vary, Brian. So I don't think like the startup cost is a couple €100. The closing down cost is a hell of a lot more, but it depends what you've achieved. And sometimes in closing down costs, we've had companies who closed down. They had software kind of developed, so then they had actually some bit of an asset, and then we figure out how to sell this asset. And rely from that, you know what I mean? So it really depends on the product and the sector. Yeah,
I know. Well, I know. Joe's probably aware of this anyway, as is Mike Dolan, director of the Innovation Vouchers Program, and we are certainly aware of it in Nimbus that we would often get clients who would execute their right to use 2 standard €5,000 vouchers. And after that, then they would go off and register another company and harvest another couple. So there's a bit of that shenanigans going on as well out there. But anyway, one thing I really liked from Joe's input was that business model canvas, the emphasis on that first step, that little dashboard. I know that I'm looking through the participants list and not actually put them too much on the hop, but one of my colleagues, Barry Gettings, is actually in the call at the moment. He's probably having a heart attack now since I just mentioned his name. But Barry, you're safe. I'm not going to pull you in or anything, but I know after working with Barry, Barry is one of our designers in Nimbus, and he takes a very much active approach in trying to learn the makeup of the company, the end users of the company, and really drives it home to the clients. Ask those questions of who are actually the customers, who are actually the end users, which is quite important. Barry, if you want to come in here, you can. But if I'm putting you too much on the spot, you can stay away. But do you have anything to add to that, Barry? Well, I think silence is golden there anyway, Barry, so we'll leave you out of it in that case. Okay, guys, I think that's been a pretty good session there now, and thanks very much for all your input. And as I say, anyone has any further questions, you can contact the Rubicon directly, and all those details are on the Beyond IoT website. And I think if you're all thinking of startups or involved in startups, the very best of luck. You're surrounded by fantastic support in Ireland, from the top to the bottom, that's for sure. So thanks for your time today, and I think we'll conclude the session there.
Well, Brian. Yeah.
Okay, take care, folks.
Thank you.
Okay, take care. Bye now.